Well, and the reason the program was late starting was we were waiting on the funding for the state. Of course, we have to continue to look at our funding as we apply for grants for early childhood, and then we have to make some decisions. We're hoping that within the next couple of years that we can stabilize so that even if the state is late making their payments and they have yet to make a decision, that we can still continue to run our programs. It's sad that we're having to start our pre-K programs in November. And some programs actually started at the beginning of the school year, but as soon as we received the information, we tried to restore. We had our plan in place, and I think Brenda can tell you that from PHA, we were ready, so that as soon as we received approval from the state, we will roll the programs out. But our goal is to try to provide early childhood education at as many sites as possible, but we know we will have to take up some of the cost out of our educational funds, and right now we're just not in a position or a situation to do that, so we're still trying to look at that. But in reference to special education services, those services would always continue for a child if they have those needs, based on the way we receive our special education funding.
Do you, I read an article in the USA Today that said that 37% of our nation's kindergarten students aren't prepared for kindergarten. Do you feel that this early childhood program in these schools is going to make a difference in that arena? Because I certainly do.
Yes, kindergarten readiness and having an early childhood program in our schools, yes, would definitely make a difference. What would be wonderful if all of our primary schools had an early childhood class, 1 or 2 classrooms, and it was students that actually would then move right into that kindergarten class, because then you can utilize the professional development with those early childhood teachers and our other K-5 teachers or K-4 teachers. But it makes a difference having children in early childhood programs. It makes a difference if we could start them at 3 and get them in. It really makes a tremendous difference because they're there, they're already acclimated, the teachers are working together. When you think about vertical alignment, as a pre-K teacher, if I know what's needed in 2nd grade and these are the foundational skills that a student needs, they can start working on that. And as the school is looking at the data, let's say the kindergarten through 4th grade teachers, then they can talk with their colleagues at the pre-K level to say, okay, we're noticing that at kindergarten, the students are not ready here when it comes to knowing their alphabet or knowing these colors. And so then they can help them with activities at those at the pre-K level.
The state has pulled back that funding for those early childhood. And the state of Illinois has been very advanced in putting funding toward 3-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And that was several years back, though, and I take it that money has sort of fallen off.
Right, and we're waiting for monies to be restored. So, and we're just, we'll wait and see what happens with the election and all the finalization at the state level, and just hope that programs will continue. Okay. Other questions?
Yes, sir.
I guess the question I wanted to ask, is there a need or an opportunity to utilize more African-American male professionals in District 150 and working with some of the young male students?
There's a need not only for African-American male role models, but male role models, period. We need, and our students need to see role models. They need to see productive citizens. They need to understand that just because your environment says that these are the rules for the neighborhood, you do not have to conduct yourself like that. And it's okay to obtain an education. It's okay to want to leave your environment and then come back to make a difference. But students need to see all mentors. I mean, we need adults in our schools. Our students are just so needy for that adult attention or someone that just can help them make some of the right choices. So definitely, we definitely need it. Yes, sir.
Similar to that, have you noticed this school year any greater involvement or interest from the point of parents partnering with either teachers or administrators in a constructive way to improve the educational development of their children?
I have not had an opportunity as far as attending different parent meetings to look at the numbers. What we're doing now is having our teachers and our principals, when they hold parent meetings, to actually keep a log, asking parents to sign in so we can actually see the numbers and look at parent involvement. Something else that you'll notice if you're a parent and you attended a parent conference either yesterday or today, you should have been asked to sign a parent compact, where it's a compact with the school and the parents saying, here's what we're going to do as a school, here's what the student needs to do, and here's what we need from the parents. So we're trying to roll that out for all of our schools. It's a requirement for Title I schools, but we wanted our non-Title I schools to also implement. So we're going to be looking at that information as it comes in to see what else we need to do to increase parent participation.
You still feel that that's very vital, that you partner with the parents of the children and the students in their development?
Yes, I can tell you just from some personal things and interactions with students and a couple of parents last week, it's very important. It's important for us to provide parenting workshops for our parents. And parents, when you call them to share with them, and me, it was just, that was my style as a principal. How can we work together so that I don't have to expel your child? Tell me what we need to do as a school, but tell me what you're going to do as a parent. Because when your child tells me that you're not going to do anything, and it's okay for him or her to disrespect a teacher and to be disruptive, you're tying my hands, because your child is preventing other children from learning. So I think it's very important. But parents need to understand we're not trying to judge them. We're not judging their parenting skills. We're just saying, how can we help you to become a better parent and so that your child can be successful? So we're still working on how to get that out and how to communicate that message to parents. So, and part of it is building relationships. But sometimes people don't want to allow us to meet them halfway. And so we're just going to keep trying. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I have a question, but you touched on it, so I guess this is more of a comment. I have a child who is now entering the 5th grade. He came from a more challenging school, a more challenging teacher, and now that he's in the 5th grade, he's not getting as challenged as I feel he should be. So I'm more interested in the program you're looking into for January, teaching your teachers to be more of a gifted style, because I don't want him to lose interest, and that's what's starting already. So I went to parent-teacher conference, but I wasn't told anything. So
and to be very honest with you, I met a young lady last night, a 6th grade student last night, and she's telling me, I'm struggling. She says, I know everything. I was at this particular school, now I'm at this school, and I already know all this, And so she said, how are you going to help me? What we're doing is trying to provide professional development training for our teachers. Of course, the trainings in January are optional trainings because it's beyond the school day. So that means that teachers would have to volunteer. We do need to look at everything in reference to curriculum. Some of our teachers, they want to. It's not that, we have a lot of teachers that saying, I'm just rebelling, I'm not going to do this. We have not provided them the resources they need, and we have not provided them curriculum guides or pacing guides so they know when to implement a particular objective, how to address it, and then the supporting resources that they need. So we're trying to get out there in the schools and work with them. It's not like there's a problem at just 1 or 2 schools. We know based on our data, I'm just going by the data, it's not pointing fingers, based on our data that we have a major problem in how we need to readdress what's happening in reference to curriculum. So it is frustrating. As a parent, it's frustrating. That's another thing when you think about how to even hold a parent conference. Some of our teachers know the things that they need to do, and some of our teachers don't because we haven't provided them that guidance. So it's not always that the teachers don't want to do, it's what have we done as leaders. And we were laughing last night. I was telling someone, because we attended a parent conference yesterday also, and I said, I was probably more nervous than the teacher. And I'm sure she's like, golly, I'm sitting here with the superintendent. I was nervous because first of all, I know what we've told my daughter how to do, and we work with her at home. But you still are nervous when you walk in, and then you think, okay, so how can I ask it so it doesn't sound like it's a superintendent asking? How do I ask the question? So I'm telling you, I'm going to have those same struggles. And so we all are trying to work through that process, but we do need to provide our teachers with like a little roadmap or a guidance. And say, okay, these are the things that parents want to know when they arrive. They want to hear, okay, this is what's happening, this is what's working, but here's what I'm going to do to address those objectives that the child is not mastering. And I'm sure that's what you want to know. What do you want me to do at home, but what are you going to do in the classroom? So we're still working through that, and our more veteran teachers, of course, they know, but we also need to spend some more time with our inexperienced teachers. And that's a problem. It's not just Peoria. That's across the entire country, that just providing additional mentoring and support for our teachers. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, is there a process or program in place to get the role models into the school? Councilman Turner had asked about role models, and you were saying, it's not just African-American men, it's everybody should be role models in the school. So how does that happen? If people in the room are interested, or people in the community, how do they get into that process or program, or is that being developed?
Through our Adopt a Schools program, or our family community coordinator, Mr. Powers, would be the person to contact. And we're looking at our Adopt a Schools program and our different organizations that have adopted our schools for them to provide us with mentors. So that would be the first step there. We know that we need to expand that as far as us publicizing and promoting and saying, hey, we're looking for so many mentors to do that. We just haven't gotten that far yet. But you can definitely start there with Mr. Powers. And you can find his information on the new website, www.psd150.org. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I was curious if there had been more discussion around changing the model of primary and middle schools from K-5 or K-4 to back to K-8 or to more neighborhood schools. I know that there's pluses and minuses on both sides, but it's a question that my children are at Whittier, and we talk about at Whittier a lot about, this used to be a K-8 school. Is there any more? And I know that some of the new schools like Glen Oak and Harrison are actually K-8. So is there a movement back towards that for the rest of the schools, or?
I wouldn't say there's a movement in the facility study as we look at the facility study and see if we can accommodate additional grades at particular schools. We're looking for that information to come out through the facility studies. We've heard from different schools or different feeders that say, we want to go back to K-8, we want to be K-5, we want to be K-6. But it's also a spacing issue and a funding issue. That means that we would need to close some schools down, go through the process of looking at redrawing our boundaries. So it would be a step-by-step process. It's not something that would happen within a year's time. But we have heard from different parents or different community groups requesting that. And we're still looking at it. Yes, sir.
Dr. Latha, could you give us an update on progress at Glen Oak and Harrison community learning centers? What's going on with that?
As far as the partnership with the full service, as far as the community usage, we're working on it now in reference to what will be the policy for the community to go in and utilize the facilities. To be very honest with you, I think as we were planning, we didn't take into consideration that if you're going to utilize the building on the weekends, who's responsible for opening the facility, who's responsible for cleaning and paying and covering that custodial piece or the other pieces that are needed. So we're trying to work that out now so that not only is it a win for the district, but it's a win for the community. And our plan is to have that information ready by January. Yes, ma'am.
I know you have a lot on your plate right now, but one of the things that concern me is the graduation rate in the community. Some of the schools have better rates versus others. Is some of your goals going to address that issue?
Yes, that's why we're looking at trying to provide options for students that, for example, if you're in a traditional track and that's not working and maybe you just learn in a different way and you need a smaller setting or you need a setting away from the group. Maybe you have been at a K-8 school and now here you are, you're together in 9th grade with this same group of students that you probably have had some problems with and maybe you need to be removed from that particular situation. We're looking at that. We're also looking at a way to make sure that, like I said, we are retaining students, that they're not dropping out. Some of our class sizes at the high schools are a little bit they're larger than what they need to be right now based on the ability levels of our students. So when you crowd in students and it's all of it, you have 30 students in a classroom, but out of the 30, 20 are 3 grade levels behind, that poses a major problem, not only for the children, but for a burden on the teacher. So we're trying to look at what can we do and what offerings can we provide to students. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything in the plans to help or improve Peoria Alternative High School?
Yes, we're looking at, once again, when we look at our program reviews, we're looking at what can we do to strengthen our programs that are out there. Do we need to consolidate some programs? Do we need to move them to another facility so students have access beyond just the facility that they're in to some other core curriculum classes? Sometimes students need an alternative setting, but they don't necessarily not need a foreign language or not need physics. So, it's just the way they learn. So we are looking at that, and that is one of the recommendations that will come. We're also looking at our alternative school. What can we do so that it's just not a place where you, in people's perceptions, that if you're bad, this is where you go and you just go and do your time. We're not a legal institution, and we're not trying to do that. So we need to change that concept so students know that, you're struggling, your behavior or something else has caused a problem for you here. Now, it's not fair to the other children who are trying to receive an education. However, maybe if we place you here in this particular program with this particular track, then you can be successful. But it's not about doing time when you're in high school. It's just not about that. And that's not the image or what we want to portray or encourage students to get into that mentality that this is where you'll spend your time. You're just being contained here now, and then when you graduate, you just step up to being behind bars. That's not what we want. Just saying the truth.